oh no, we need a police station. This is absurd, what they were working out of.
Yeah.
And I'm realizing, I'm telling everybody I'm slashing this budget, and my first thought is, we need to build a police station. And, I mean, they really, and I'm just going, oh my God, and so then I went down and talked to Bob Varnum, who said, what are you doing here? And I said, well, I want to come down and talk to all the department heads and, get an idea of, and he said, well, I'll come up and talk to you in the town hall. He did not like me coming down and being in the town barn. But, after a little bit of conversation, he kind of warmed up, and I said, look, I'm just, I'm new, I'm trying to learn, what are your needs? What do you need? And of course, at that point, they needed a lot of new equipment. And I'm thinking, oh, geez, boy, here goes the budget. And then I talked to Celeste, and I'm just, everybody I talked to needed new stuff. And I'm, by the end of the first week, I'm thinking, oh my God, this is not going down, this is going up. So that was kind of a, it wasn't really difficult because they were all real needs. And when you reduce that budget, you're going to affect different parts of the town, whoever's using that money. And what I found out was the money wasn't being misspent. We weren't overspending money. It was all the different needs were being met. So by reducing the budget anywhere, you're really going to impact various programs or departments. So that was kind of a difficult realization for me. And the only decision that I really enjoyed making was when I'm going to go a couple of seconds over.
That's permitted, sir.
All right. So early on, we were informed that we had a $1.5 million deficit. So it's good that Mike and Steve aren't here because they and the town administrator at the time, they wanted to figure out what was going on. And before, and I can understand that before they made it public, they wanted to understand how this deficit occurred. And I wanted to just open the books and let everybody know we've got an issue. So the decision was made to not do that immediately. So the next selectmen's meeting we had, there were quite a bit of reporters there, and 40-some friends and family members of mine. And the other two selectmen are going, what is going on? How come all these people are here? And I went, ooh. And then we went through the meeting, and at the end of the meeting, when you have other business, I said, oh, I would like to mention that we have a $1.5 million deficit in town. And that started quite a conversation. But that wasn't a really difficult decision. For me, it was an easy decision. I just thought it was very important to just get that out in the open right away. And I was only there for a couple months, so I knew it really wasn't me. It wasn't but it wasn't really anybody's. There was no. There wasn't improper, use of money. It was just, and Eric actually was probably the biggest, sleuth in kind of figuring out what was going on. But in any case, spending other people's money is the hardest part of the job.
Mr. Tenney, What are the rewards of serving as prominent town officers?
Nothing except you did your duty. I'm serious. I think you owe it to the town to do your duty. Not individual. Probably the biggest one, you know, is I was the one who handed out who put the Civil War monument back down. That's a visible reward, that's it.
Mr. Pratt?
Well, I guess, some of the things, I don't remember that I had any particular things as a selectman that I would take a great deal of satisfaction from being involved with. But some of the things we did on the sewer and water department were very satisfying. I remember when a line had broken on Upper High Street in the middle of the winter, and Punky Davidson called me at 4 o'clock in the morning, and it was well below zero, and all of the valves that we could try to access were frozen and inoperable. And we eventually, this was shortly before we transferred to the well, and the pump is the primary source. We were still getting water from Campbell Pond, and so by opening up a hydrant, we were able to steal enough water to effectively shut down Upper High Street, which then gave us the opportunity to make emergency repairs to the leak. So it turned out well, and it's pleasant to look back on some of those exploits, and you had a good relationship with other people. Punky Davidson did a great deal of good for the town of Antrim, and so things that you did working with other people, in my case with Eric and Punky and Jim Carruthers, those are the things that I look back on with a sense of satisfaction. It just makes me pleased that I had a chance to work on some of those things.
Bob Flanders, sir.
I'm going to ask Ben, because of a story that I've heard. Is this the time that you were down in a hole working on something, and you didn't hear Punky coming up, and he put his hand down and said, "Can I help you, Ben?" Kind of surprised you?
I think so.
I had heard that story from his wife. Well, I guess the biggest reward that I've got, and I will just say one thing about the most difficult job being on the Board of Selectmen. I will just say, I don't believe that because I served on the school board. And that is something that you can't really, with all due respect, wait to get off from. But
That's another panel, sir.
yeah, I know, but what helped me, and I spent 6 years in the Senate, and what you're dealing with in state government are towns, schools, and being on the school board, being a member of the select board, being a moderator, just helped me have knowledge to get up and be able to say something that I knew for a fact. And it helped me a great deal, and it also helped me to get along with the other aisle. Because when I got up to say something, with the history that I had, they believed it, and we were able to pass some pretty nice legislation. But not always did we agree, because I had somebody tell me who was the vice president of the bank many, many years ago, that when two people agree, one of them's unnecessary. And I've always kind of kept that in the back of my mind. But, really, it was
That's
just.
why we get along so well.
Because it was just a bit, it was a good reward to meet people. Now, the other thing that I'm going to say about the rewards, and I think you'll probably agree with me, every time you took a vote, 50% of the people want a good idea. And the other 50%, what the hell did you do that for? And that's the way it ended up. You maybe, if you please half the people, you're doing a pretty good job. Don't you agree?
Yep.
Old road agent Bennington says you just gotta keep 51% happy.
Yeah.
You know, anybody who has volunteered understands the feeling of reward for doing something with no expectation for doing it. And it's a good feeling. And even though the selectmen do have to get a small salary, when you figure out how many hours you put in a year, it's essentially a volunteer position. So you're really volunteering. And so you know, it's one of the things that you know, it feels good when you do stuff to help people. When we had the bad ice storm, I think it was in 2011 maybe?
2008.
2008, okay, well, anyway, I was selectman, and I was spending a few nights down at the town hall. We opened up the town hall as a emergency center, and people that were out of water, the water was still running at town hall, so we were providing water for people. We had cots up there and blankets and food, and people were coming in and staying there. And that was probably one of the most rewarding aspects of being a selectman for me, is, you know, at the end of it, I walked away just kind of feeling pretty darn good about myself. And for how many times I've heard that being a selectman's a thankless job, I would look at people and I said, no, it isn't. I would get thanked all the time by the 51% anyway. But that's really, you know, looking particular projects, like Ben said, you know, the Highland Ave, Lower Pleasant Street, that whole project that just got finished. That had been in the works for years, and it was something that really needed to be done, but it was a big ticket item, and it got kicked down the road for quite a few years. But and once it got started, I was no longer a selectman. I was in the bidding process for the engineering and contracting, and then I got done. And so all last year, watching it, I just was really pleased to watch it happen. And I drive through there now, you know, and I look at it and I'm like, this, you know, one, function-wise, it, you know, and infrastructure-wise, it was something that was really important that the town needed. It looks nice, and I drive through there and I just, you know, I go, you know what, I was part of this, you know, and I like that feeling.
Why don't we have a question and answer session until 4 o'clock? I should tell you that the Antrim Historical Society has recorded, has videotaped hour-long interviews with Eric, Ben, and Bob, and Gordon is now coming into our sites as well. And they've had really varied local government and local, community organization histories, and it's really very interesting to, I think, to go through these interviews. We're going to get you, Gordon. So why don't we just open up the questions and answers to our veteran select board members.
Got a question about roads. It seems to me in the late 70s and 80s, there was between the pressure of development and the takings movement, roads, and I know we Conservation Commission had to define carefully what a scenic road was and what you could cut. But I'd like to hear any stories or memories you have about roads, like the Homewood subdivision on Meeting House Hill, or just anything about care of the roads and controversy.
I can just make one statement about what happened at our time, and it was a mistake. Again, you look back, it was a great idea at the time. But in those days, tar was very cheap. And so we decided that all these dirt roads were taken all the time, that we just tar them. Well, we know what ended with that. It all broke up and it was not a good idea. So most of the dirt roads that got tarred are now dirt roads. So that's my knowledge of what we did about roads. We never did it again.
In front of, on Old Hancock Road, that was paved for many years, and then when Bob Varnum was road agent, it was coming apart pretty badly, and he recommended that instead of paving it, tear it right up and put it back to a dirt road, and it was a dirt road for quite a few years, and then they ended up paving it again. But the maintenance on the dirt road was a lot less, and occasionally they would come in and put down the, whatever it is they put down to keep the dust down, just in front of the houses. But the maintenance on it was considerably less than a paved road.
Bender.
The thing I found out as a selectman is one thing you've got to be awfully careful about that I never would have thought of is a class 6 road.
Oh, yeah.
Class 6 road is, it is illegal for the town to spend any money on a class 6 road. And it seems like it ought to be a pretty benign object, but it's not. Somebody is always going to need to do something on a class 6 road that's not covered. Like they'll want to improve it at their own expense. That sounds pretty safe, but it isn't. You want to, future selectmen want to remember that a class 6 road is like a hot stove. Don't touch it or you're going to get burned. It happened during my time on the board, and I've seen it happen again since.
The minute you do any work on a class 6 road, it becomes a class 5 road. And now you're obligated to maintain it as a class 5 road. So you don't really want to touch a class 6 road.
Eric, roads. This is the premier expert on the roads of Antrim, I'll just say.
Well, I gotta say this. When I got off the first term as selectman, I ended up being on planning board, and there's somebody sitting here that was part of this. Skip Homets came in and wanted, if you'll remember, to put a subdivision up above the Grange. You didn't have anything to do a lot of this, but, and he offered to help pay to upgrade Meeting House Hill Road, which at that point was basically a class 6 road, but it wasn't. Nobody's ever declassified it. And the Antrim Planning Board, this is why I quit it, went to Concord and they decided you gotta rip down the stone walls and widen it and blah, blah, blah. And 5,000 wasn't gonna do it. But then this went on and on and on for a couple of years. I finally got off the board and I voted I wanted to keep it open. Mainly because of Meeting House Hill Cemetery and the historic site. So I said, hey, Skip, put in $5,000. We don't need to make a regular boulevard out of it. Just because it's a continuous downhill slope like this. And, no, gotta widen it. Rather, I said, well, let's just wait until somebody else comes up with another subdivision, maybe you can do it there. Nope, you gotta do it now. Well, I got no lawsuit, and while the lawsuit was going on, okay, the town closed the road subject to gates and bars, which made it officially a Class 6 road, but still a public way. And I got off both board, I'd had it, but I think the town settled and gave Skip the $5,000. You wanna talk one of the dumbest decisions I think I've ever seen. And the road never got changed. And I had one or two people that live up there that are actually maintaining the road in halfway decent shape. But the town's not responsible for that because it was closed subject to gates and bars. And I still maintain the town ought to pick it up, I've always maintained, up as far as the cemetery, because of the historic site. Now, if somebody wants to make a subdivision beyond that on top of the hill, go for it, you're on your own. But that wasn't one of, I often felt it was one of the dumbest decisions the town involved in. That was 40 years ago almost now.
You.
I was wondering, I remember I lived down, Concord Street, and we walked the sidewalks to school all the time. And one year they redid the sidewalks, and it seemed like they used to have granite edges. And one year when they redid them, the granite edges were gone and they were tarred with no granite edges. I was wondering why they never put them back, because they looked really neat with granite edges, and now they're just like tarred down like fruits. I don't know. What happened?
I don't know, but my guess is, it's a state highway. And they probably have certain requirements that you can have. I know you can have the granite curbs in town. I'm betting it was a state, the requirements for the state roads are quite a bit different from town roads.
They were there.
Pardon me?
They took them away.
I know, but if, I'm guessing, because I don't know, but I'm just guessing that it was a state requirement, but it's,
Because we used to do like the Leave It to Beaver thing,
Uh-huh.
1 foot up, 1 foot down, and I can do it anymore.
One thing I'd like to bring up on the roads, though, that I learned, was that the roads are probably the greatest asset that the town has. The amount of roads that we have and the cost to them, the investment that we have in them, is far greater than government buildings, the trucks and all the tractors and all the equipment that we have. The greatest asset that the town has is the roads and bridges, actually, so, our infrastructure, but the roads. And so, people used to complain, to the selectmen about the highway department budget. And I would explain to them that the reason that the highway department is so big, the budget, is because we are taking care of our greatest asset. And so, just thought I'd throw that out. It's not something that, it's not flashy, it's not a brand new fire truck or, a new addition to the library, or it's, it's just not real flashy. But it is one of the most important things that we own. And so putting a lot of money into them is important.
Final question.
Well,
Silence. Thank you, gentlemen, for your service.
Yeah,
It is selfless. I disagree with Brother Weber here. I don't see where the reward penalty ratio to me is heavily in the penalty area rather than the reward. Yeah, sure, fine.
I thought you might be interested in this. This is the town school report, 1965. Lillian Grant was a teacher. Her salary was $4,500 a year. Charles Hamill, principal, $6,700. Gertrude Mulhall, taught here forever, $5,000. Isabel Nichols, $1,800.
Oh, jeez.
Mrs. Tucker, Tasker from Hillsborough, $4,600.
From Tasker's store?
Beverly Kenny, $5,000. But Beverly had $1,020 taken out. So she only took home $3,979. So you can see what's happened.
I can remember when my mother, when they shifted to Conval, she got like a $15,000 raise. That's what she was getting paid in Antrim.
I wanna know something though. When you were a selectman, you made $100. When you were a moderator, you made $100. When you were on the Senate, you made $100. You never got any increases, anywhere along the way.
You know why?
Why?
Because we used to put, if we, any town employee got a raise, it had to be a warrant article. Don't do that anymore. They put it in the budget, all of a sudden they get a raise and no one knows about it. This is something that's upset me since day one, and it upsets me today, because I think, with all due respect, they're sneaking things by us, and we don't know what's happening. But I'll tell you, Mr. Black, who used to be the mailman, I don't know if any of you ever went to a town meeting where he was,
Yes.
but he knew the town report better than all three of us put together. And he used to go right on through it and make us answer every question on the budget and so forth.
He
And
used to
maybe I'll
criticize
do
buying
that next
pencils.
year. That'd be kind of fun, because you never know what's in that budget. Thank you.
On that note, thank you, gentlemen, this has been really great. Thank you.